We already have 3 Eurovision entries and the year has only just started. That means we're gonna have to talk about them. Over the next few months, we are gonna be talking about every single Eurovision 2024 entry. We're starting today with Albania, the Czech Republic, and France. Before we do that, there's going to be a lot coming in the next few months. There's going to be an announcement about that at the end of this video, so stick around. In the meantime, make sure to like this video and subscribe because you're not going to want to miss anything. And like I said, stick around because it's a big announcement. You can also super chat if you want. We have a Patreon where you can get videos a day early, and all the support is really appreciated.
Also, make sure to follow Gabe on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to follow my Twitter as well, you can follow it here.
Now, let's get on with it. And to be clear, these are not going to be reaction videos. There are plenty of people who do very good reactions on YouTube, and I do not need to add to that. So instead, we're going to try and take a slightly different angle with things here. I'm not going to have a set format for this because every single song is different. Every artist is different. And there's going to be different things for each song that are the most interesting bits to cover. So I'm going to talk about national finals sometimes. I'm going to talk about artists' backgrounds sometimes. There's a lot of different things to cover. So let's just kind of go with it. See where it takes us. Maybe it'll be terrible. You decide. In any case, let's just get started with Albania, which was one of the most bizarre national finals I've ever watched in my life. FIK, and I'm gonna stick to saying FIK after you all clowned on me in the iceberg video. I'm standing by my guns. FIK was just completely off the rails this year. There was so much going on that I'm going to have to spend a lot of time talking about that rather than the selected entry. But let's just get into it and let me tell you why it was so weird. There were 31 participants in FIK this year, but we can't talk about all of them because it would take way too long. So let me just set out a few main characters for you. Firstly, Elsa Lila, last year's winner. Of course, she didn't go to Eurovision because she didn't win the public vote. Elsa is back and she is singing about her arrest on drug trafficking offences. For legal reasons, we should say she was cleared of all charges. Secondly, we have I Can't Believe It's Not Jugend Bush Pepper. Third, we have Silver Boob Lady, who has come to tell us about what sound a cow makes. Jesus, Albanian Wreck-It Ralph, who can't sing, but at least he's having a nice time, and Constract isn't. This one started as it meant to go on. It was chaotic before a note was even sung, or sung in the case of Albanian Wreck-It Ralph. Before the show started, 3 prominent acts withdrew. This included Casey Tola, who represented Albania at Eurovision in the past. Eurofans, naturally, because of course we did, got out the tinfoil hats, started making conspiracy theories, and the going theory was that the whole thing had been rigged so that Elsa Lila would win. We'll come back to that in a minute and see if it was true. Let's look at the songs of our contenders. So firstly, Elsa Lila, we briefly touched on this already. Her song Mars is about her time after her arrest for drug trafficking. She was eventually cleared, but as we talked about on the iceberg, which you can go back and watch after this video if you haven't already, seriously, that video was like me and Jay's lives for a month and we're still traumatized. There was some allegations linking her to a prominent drug trafficking ring in Italy. It was to do with a casino she managed and a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, go back and watch the iceberg video if you want to hear the full story. For me, Mars didn't hit in the same way her song Evita did last year. If you see my national final ranking video, I said that there's a lot of songs in FIK that are average ballads elevated by brilliant voices. And I really think this is the case here, unfortunately. It just doesn't hit the same way Evita did. As a side note, is it just me, or does this guy who was conducting during Elsa's performance really look like a GTA Online character? I'm sorry, but like, what is that haircut?
Look at the top of his head!
I Can't Believe It's Not Jugend Bush Pepper, aka Tiri Gyotsi, brought us another standard ballad out of the Albanian ballad factory. I had to go back and listen to this song again before I recorded this video because I couldn't remember what it sounded like, which does not bode well for him. But he's here and he's trying his best. Sadly, the song is not pulling up any trees. Silver Boob Lady is Besa Kokadima. She's got a lot of experience because she has done FIK twice before, in 2008 and 2010. She also tried to represent Romania in 2009, back when they actually took Eurovision seriously. Her song, Zemran Dor, is another ballad elevated by a great voice. I do think it's a bit stronger and more catchy than some of the others, but you can really tell it is Bessa's voice that is making this work. Bessa did actually ditch the silver boobs in the final and replaced it with a crown that she stole from Kate Miller-Heidke and a dress that made her look a bit like she was at a hen do, but didn't want to marry the man that she was going to meet at the altar, and so was hoping to find someone else while she was there. If you combine the silver boobs and the gold dress, you end up with this Jean-Paul Gaultier fragrance, so maybe there was something going on there.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Jesus, aka Sergio Haidini, brought a ballad as well, and he appeared to have stole Bessa's bride-to-be sash. This is another one I had to listen to again when I was making the video, and again it has the same Albanian nothing burger mid-ballad factory problem that Thierry Ghiozzi has. Albanian Wreck-It Ralph is Mal Retkatseri, and his song Chmenda was delivered with enthusiasm? There were not many notes hit in this performance, but what he did generate was a lot of thirst comments online. I saw you all doing it, you know what you did, and I am ashamed of you. At least, though, it seems to me like Mal was having a really good time, so good for him, I guess. Finally, we have Construct Isn't. This is Luan Demishi with his song Persericia. This one means repetition, so naturally it was quite repetitive, but it was definitely the most experimental song in the competition. This song drew immediate comparisons to Incorpore Sano by Constructor, and if you watch the performance, you'll see why. It is really like a similar vibe in a lot of ways. That said, part of what made Constructor stand out is that Incorpore Sano was interesting, it was avant-garde, but it was also accessible. The public at large in Europe really got on board with this, and I don't know whether this song Persericia had the same appeal. That said, it was very memorable. Unfortunately, poor Luan didn't quite get there with the high notes. Unfortunately, the juries also didn't put this through to the final, but that didn't eliminate its chances of going to Eurovision because of the weird voting system in FIK, which I will tell you about in a minute. On to the show itself. To be honest, it was a complete mess. Like, it was a total train wreck, but in a kind of wonderful and hilarious way. There was loads wrong, but I've picked out a few of my favourite bits, whether it's the low-budget titles before each song, accompanied by an equally low-budget fire visual and sound effect, the fact that the credits at the end were off-centre, and that there was an awkward pause before and after each song for the hosts to walk on and off stage. As for the voting system, this is where things get strange. There is a jury that decide who the finalists are, but the majority of the songs are pre-qualified because if you're a returning artist, an established artist, you go straight to the final automatically. That meant you had this weird semi-final where most of the songs performing were already through. At the same time, there's also a thing where the public decide who goes to Eurovision, and they can pick any song, including the songs that don't make it out of the semi-final. That meant our boy Construct Isn't was still technically in with a chance. However, they gave him the worst possible clip in the recap to nobble his chances even further. So, after 22 performances in the final and about 14 hours, who emerged as the winner? Well, firstly, let's talk about who it wasn't. It was not Silver Boob Lady, it was not Jesus, and most surprisingly, it was not Elsa Lila. Remember at the start of the video where we said, oh, everyone was withdrawing and the conspiracy was that it was because it was rigged for Elsa Lila? Yeah, did not happen. Twitter went into meltdown straight away, perhaps unsurprisingly. There was a lot of love for Elsa's song on the timeline, and the juries hadn't even put it in the top 3. A juror actually later came out and said, and thank you to Red Bull's Wings on Twitter for helping me with this juror claimed that the song was worse than Evita, that it was very similar, and that the jury tried to be more objective and professional, whatever that means, which stinks to high heaven, but there we go. Congratulations here have to go to I Can't Believe It's Not Jugend Bushpepper, who came a respectable 2nd place, but that left one man and one man only to take the win. Mal Retkatseri. That's right, Albanian Wreck-It Ralph, the guy who can't sing. To be honest, I am totally at a loss as to how this guy won the show, and he looked just as surprised as everyone else when he went up to collect his trophy. The crowd were not impressed and roundly booed when this was announced. That was the ones who were left because half of the crowd had already gone home by this point. This still left one loose end, which was who goes to Eurovision. Now remember, it is the winner of the public vote, and any of the songs, including the ones from the semi-final, could win that and then end up going to Eurovision. The winner was our silver boob lady Ata Hendu Bessa Kokadima, having narrowly avoided an embarrassing fall during her grand final performance. She took the ticket to Eurovision. This result and the standard of the show at large immediately courted controversy in Albania. There were allegations of rigging and corruption. These things are relatively standard for FIK, so we shouldn't be too surprised. But it was pointed out that Bessa's father was a prominent politician in Albania. And it was pointed out that Mal, of course, who won the show's mother, was a famous singer from Kosovo. Like I said, this isn't new for Albania, but it is awfully convenient that if you look at the recent winners, there have been several with friends in high places. That's not to say anything about Bessa or anything else, and she has since come out on Twitter to defend herself against these allegations. In any case, this is the song we are left with, and in my opinion, I'm going to go against the grain and say this is absolutely a worthy winner. It's going to have maybe a little bit of a struggle getting into the final, depending on how it's revamped, depending on the other ballads in the semi-finals that it is competing against. But it's a strong song. It's reasonably catchy. Bessa is a really good singer. So I think we could see Albania in the final again this year. To be honest, I do kind of suspect that we're going to follow the same arc that Albanian songs tend to follow at Eurovision, where the national final happens, everyone writes them off, they are written off the entire season, then the show comes along and they qualify for the final. It seems to happen most years, with the exception of Lindita Halimi in 2017. To be honest, I think we are probably going to end up seeing Albania in the final again this year. Time will only tell. On to France, and we are talking about Slimane, who was internally selected. Before I start, I know you've all been sharing this photo around from the live performance video. I'm not saying anything, but I am judging you. This song got one of the earliest drops in Eurovision history. Like, it came out on November the 8th. If you'll let me put on my tinfoil hat for a second, I suspect that the French were going to try and get it to be an interval act at Junior Eurovision, which took place later that month. And the EBU said no. I really can't think of any other reason why you would drop a Eurovision song this early, and so much early than any other. We were just talking about vocalists elevating a song with their voice, and again, this is absolutely what happens here, because Slimane, his vocals are absolutely out of this world. We can say now, with pretty much certainty, he will be one of the best vocalists at Eurovision this year. We shouldn't be surprised by this either, because this is a guy with 3 #1 albums in the last decade in France. Provided the vocal performance at Eurovision matches what we have already seen, this could absolutely win the jury vote. I personally think it's unlikely, but it's good enough that it has a chance. The one thing I would say is that the bridge and the final chorus perhaps don't deliver enough for some people, and that could hold it back. It's me, by the way. I'm some people. The video that came out alongside the song's release had Slimane in a shiny vest, much like Dotta's Bulletproof in 2020, and God, I am still so angry she was robbed. Anyway, it probably gives us a clue about how France is going to ultimately stage the song at Eurovision. Don't forget, they did exactly the same thing with Lazara last year, and we ended up with a staging that, while not exactly the same, did bear a number of resemblances to the original release video. There is a caveat here. One thing we should remember, in recent years, there have been multiple occasions where France has sent a song that could end up as a favourite, only for it to get to the contest and not do anywhere near as well as people expect. Think Mercy by Madame Monsieur in 2018, or Évidemment by Lazara just last year. As a side note, I never got the Mercy hype. Like, I felt so vindicated when that song came mid-table, because it was a total nothing burger for me from the very first time I heard it. Early France hype and then a disappointing finish is a path we have tread a few times before, so I would just caution people against getting too excited for this reason. The obvious exception is Voila in 2021, but I think that was a much stronger song. I think everyone knows it was a much stronger song. and we're not starting from the same base here. To be clear, I do think Slimane is going to deliver a stronger performance, especially a stronger performance than Lazara did vocally last year. I just don't think this is going to have the televote appeal that Voila did. For that reason, I think it's just going to fall a little bit short in favour of other songs that the public are more likely to engage with. On that basis, I'm going to say that this song is going to probably get in the top 5 with the juries, but then finish lower mid-table with the public. So it's going to be a great result, but not the win that France are clearly looking for. I do think that France will win in the next few years because given their unstoppable record in the Junior Eurovision Song Contest, it does feel like a matter of time. This, however, not going to be their year. The third and final entry we're going to talk about in this video is the Czech Republic, and for them this year, it is Pedestal by Aiko.
Put myself on a pedestal.
You may have seen, I was actually at the Czech national final this year. I was covering it for ESC United. Hi guys, hello from Prague. Gabe here, ESC United. You can see all of the interviews I did with the acts, including the winner with Cesar Sampson, who was the host, and the head of delegation, Krzysztof Szamal, over on the ESC United YouTube channel. But make sure you watch the rest of the video first before you do that. Now, nobody expected Aiko to win ESCZ, except for me. That's right, I called it after the rehearsal. I will now accept my round of applause. For those of you who watched this national final, you will have noticed that the live performances of every single artist sounded a bit off. And I want to stress, in the defense of the Czech delegation here, they were on the same budget as last year. Last year, they had no studio audience. This year, they had a venue, they had a studio audience, and the thing is that that venue, which was the Roxy Club in Prague, is not designed for broadcast. It is designed for live music in the room, which made it a very challenging environment for the artists. I also think we shouldn't underestimate the value of institutional knowledge in a show like this. If you're the UK or you're Sweden and you've hosted Eurovision recently and you have big national finals in the case of Sweden, you're going to have a lot of people who know how to produce a show like this, who know the pitfalls, who know how to set it up. If you're the Czech team doing this, a lot of people working on it will not have produced a show like this before. So I think it is going to take some years to iron out all the creases. But I do think year on year, this is going to be a really exciting national final to watch. And I think it will improve over time. Like, seriously, this stuff is not easy. Remember in 2017 when Ukraine had to call in Krista Bjorkman to come and save them before the show? This stuff is hard. Running a show of this level is really, really difficult. With that in mind, I'm actually quite reassured that everyone didn't sound very good, because that means that the problem was not the artist's vocals, but rather the studio itself, which means hopefully we should see an improvement during the season and it's not going to sound like that again. That said, from my perspective in the room, everything sounded pretty good. Like I said, this was a venue optimized for live performance rather than for broadcast, and it did really show, because to me, everything sounded great. I'm going to predict right now that Pedestal, which won, is going to spend the entire season being compared to Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo, and I know this because I already did it. It does have a similar kind of vibe, but I think that speaks more to the influences and the source of inspiration for the song than it does to any imitation on the part of Aiko. One thing to know is that Aiko specifically moved to Brighton in the southeast of England to be in the kind of British music bubble that exists between there and London and some of the surrounding areas. She has made a conscious choice based off how she wants to develop her musicality. That means the influences around her are going to be British producers, British musicians, and British bands. So if you're looking for where she's drawn inspiration from, the route is not towards Olivia Rodrigo, it is towards the British and Irish bands who have defined that genre over time. So some examples I can think of: the Cranberries from Ireland, I can think of Block Party, Two Door Cinema Club, the Arctic Monkeys, of course. This is the kind of thing that we're getting at here. That means that the target audience that this is most going to appeal to is nondescript British men, and guess what I am? That means I actually really like this song. I think it's kind of got a bit of a timeless sound. It plays into that rock style, which has aged so well and continues to age well. If you look over the last decade, I think entries that are sort of more rocky have generally aged a lot better than the faster moving, faster evolving pop that we're used to. I also don't think it's particularly likely that we will get another song in Eurovision that has a similar sound to this. The UK are sending Ollie Alexander, who is not going to send a song like this. And in Ireland, while there are rocky songs, and I really hope Gabe wins the national final there, we'll come on to that in a few weeks though, it's not similar to this song. It is a different kind of rock. It is drawing on different influences. I also don't think we're going to get a Joker Out style appearance out of the blue either. That gives this a really clear angle that could appeal to a lot of people. So I think the prospects for it are better than people are giving it credit for. Regarding the live vocal, there were particular criticisms for Aiko's live vocals at ESCZ. And again, at this stage, I think we need to just not be that worried. I think things are going to be all right. If you look online, there's plenty of videos of Aiko singing live where she sounds great. So I think we just need to give her time to pull together the performance, get herself ready for Eurovision. We should remember we are still months away. There is a long way to go. Honestly, the first thing I think of is that everyone wrote off Vesna last year and said that their live vocals were terrible, and then they ended up finishing 10th. So like, everyone just calm down a bit. Things are going to be okay. It's funny that I say this because quite frankly, I'm going to do the standard Eurofan thing and spend the next 5 months having a total meltdown over every tiny thing that happens. So yes, I know I'm a hypocrite. Will I be apologizing for it? No. So that is our 3 songs for today. I am planning to cover every single song in the contest in this way. Every song is going to have something different, which is interesting about it. So we're going to change the way we cover them, as you saw today, based on the story of the artists and the story of the songs. In any case, I'm still feeling this format out a bit, and this is the first season where I've done this, so let me know what you think, or if there's anything that you would like to see from this, because I'm curious to know. What covering all 37 songs means, at a rate of 3 a video, is that I will have to do 12 videos to cover them all. Maths fans among you will know it would take me half a year if I was doing videos every other week, and I would literally be doing nothing else at all. I would lose my mind. That brings me onto my announcement for this video. We are going to weekly videos. That's going to be from February through until the contest. You will get a new video every single week. It's going to be pretty intense for me and for Jay, but we're just going to power through it, and if it traumatizes us, then so be it. This contest has already made us mentally ill. What's another little bit? There may be occasional bonus videos in that time as well, if we have the time to do it. So in addition to the weekly videos, you may see 1 or 2 crop up unexpectedly. That said, that's only going to happen if we have the time and if they are good enough quality. For this channel, it's always going to be quality over quantity. That is the key here. In the meantime, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, make sure you've liked the video, make sure you followed me and Jay, my editor, on social media. See you in 2 weeks. And take care.